The bones of what you believe.
Here then, Liathven, said Aeslin, gesturing to the southwest. Wounded but not beaten, coiling, tending to its injuries while Orc and Empire and Feni squabble on the outskirts. Cut off from us, no trods, chaos and disorder feed in the Valan's heart. No chaos in Miaren, she gestured boldly with one hand, standing up straight. Victory, triumph, the quiet valleys, the gentle woods, the promise of the future, Seren rebuilt and rebuilding, shaping a home for the children who will never know war. Brave, gentle, a promise made to be kept. The vales and mountains of Hakinian, Hakinia, the scarred land. Her face fell, but she kept her gaze resolute. Too easy to forget the malice that waits patient among the ancient trees, vicious like a chained beast, eager to bring down its captors. A long lesson in the folly of too much pride, too much ambition. Her words faltered slightly, became uncertain, all part of the act, but compelling nonetheless. Over the mountains, Emrys, on the cold plains of Skuld, prisoner of the Thule, smothered by the winter, bound a-borning, bringing down the sun. Her voice became steadier, and a half-smile spread across her face. Clever words and caution. We have wrapped Emrys gently in the threads of our duty, bound it with oaths. The long, slow walk draws away its power, and it will fall in time. Then to the east, 2 cities, the marshes of Theronin, the swamps of the Sarangrave. Tharonind and Biantaldol, twins raised and fallen together, with the great dank fever water between them. The city waits, unbound and unknown. Last found, it lies beyond the trods, but close enough that we could reach out. She mimed her words, reaching, stretching desperately. Let her fingers fall. Too far for now, but not for much longer. Kavan, then, at the heart of the Sea of Green, furthest from the heart in Axos. Untamed, untouched, its power unchallenged. The seething mass of Vizokumo, brought to our ears by a brave traveller. A lesson from the past, a dark portent for the future. What shall be done about Kavan, kept from us by the fear of the unwise? She paused, as if ruminating, and then turned in a long, slow circle, arms out. And last, the first, the forests of Teruniel, the bounds of Brokeliand, the centre, the heart of the hearts, the battlefield where we now fight. Our chance for dark ranging slips through our fingers, but it is only a battle. The war continues, will continue, until the corruption is rooted out. 7 hearts, 7 battles. One day, peace. One day, victory. One day, an answer to the task our ancestors made for us by their foolishness. One day, an end. She raised her fists triumphantly, and there was an answering shout from the rest of the steading. One day an end! As the cheer died away, Celebro Ringmarker called out, What about Fionessa? He was answered by laughter. Sweating, tired, her voice almost failing, Aeslin joined the laughter, gratefully gulping down a mouthful of wine passed by one of the children. Where now, Fionessa? She improvised dramatically to more scattered laughter. Built on dreams, drowned in rings, bound in ragged parchment and cheap ink. A cloud city built on leaguish whimsy, a tale for children, a sad distraction for brave thorns who should know better than to mock an artist in the circle of stories and songs after she has spent all evening regaling him with his own history. She quirked an eyebrow at Celebro, who laughed along with the others, shaking his head and apologising slightly drunkenly. but not everyone was laughing. One of the newcomers, he had arrived with the striding from the west earlier in the day, was still busily scribbling on his parchment as he had been throughout the performance. Realizing it was now over, he stuck his pen behind his ear and strode purposefully over. "We've not met properly," he said without preamble. "I'm from the Great Library of Hakinian, and I'd very much like to ask you a few questions about your poem, if that's all right." Yesterday is tomorrow. The Navarre take pride in sacrifice, but we must not sacrifice our pride. Pride tells us never to be ashamed of our past. Teruniel is dead, but from the ashes Navarre was formed. We send Iniska Ashwood with 50 doses of Liao to remind Navarre of what we have achieved, with the aid of the Empire and since the fall of Teruniel. We are Navarre, not Teruniel. Take pride in what we have achieved so far. One day the Valorn will be eradicated, and we must plan for that future. Iniska Ashwood, Summer 384YE, upheld, 278 to 52, a greater majority. We, the Navarre Assembly, think that it's time to make the Great Library of Hakinia greater, expanding the complex and making it a true empire-wide centre of history and learning. Niala Blackhawk, Summer 384YE, upheld, 292 to 0, a greater majority. At the summer solstice, the Navarre Assembly sent Iniska Ashwood to enact a mandate urging their people to take pride in what has been achieved so far, that one day the Valorn will be eradicated, and that the Navarre must plan for that future. That mandate followed on from several previous statements of principle, and encouraged scholars and adventurers alike to focus their efforts on learning more about Navarre rather than Teruniel history. The wording also made clear that the Navarre were not interested in any closer relations with the Faini of Liathavan, who had proposed a much stronger condemnation of the Teruniel. Rather than dwelling on the mistakes of the past, Navarre scholars turn their gaze to the present and the future, building on the foundation of what has gone before, to find new ways to fulfil their oaths. A number of younger Navarre have split away from their striding or steading as a result of the mandate, and now actively roam the Empire seeking out relics and stories of their own history, of the Navarre who came before them. This mandate also came at the same time that Niala Blackhawk called for the Great Library of Hakinia to be expanded, making it a true empire-wide centre of history and learning. While beautiful, to call it the Great Library is a stretch. A compact structure built in harmony with the Teruniel ruins near Morning Hollow in Hakinia, overseen by the advisor on the Valorn. Yet it could be significantly more than that, and the Navarre Assembly's support for Niala Blackhawk's statement, coming as it does at the same time as the mandate urging folk to look to the roots of the Navarre, proves quite inspirational. The Navarre as a nation have a vast stock of lore about their own history, and their centuries-long struggle with the Valorn. Unfortunately, it is scattered among stridings, steadings, and wayhouses across the Empire. Efforts were made early on in Imperial history to gather this lore together, and as a consequence many irreplaceable documents were lost forever when Emperor Nicovar burned the libraries. What remains is carefully guarded, scattered, to keep it safe from any similar disaster in the future. If the Great Library of Hakinian were expanded, however, and steps taken to ensure that it could not be harmed in the future, then perhaps the custodians of this knowledge might be prepared to bring it all together in one place, for the first time since Teruniel fell. A House of Lore. The Great Library is entirely unsuitable to house this lore, at least at the moment. After a great deal of discussion, plans have been drawn up for a structure to be built in Morning Hollow that would serve as a true repository of the nation's knowledge. It will be very expensive and take a long time to complete, but once finished, it will attract scholars and lore keepers from all across the nation to bring their histories, their lore books, and their ancient records together. Such a move would be unprecedented. Such a collection has never existed before, not even in the days before Nicovar. As the history of the Dance of Navarre and Thorn indicates, there have always been pieces of history, knowledge that small groups of Navarre possessed, that have simply become lost to the nation as a whole over the course of the last 10 centuries. With a place to store it, the scholars and Vates would finally be able to start cross-referencing and comparing notes, weighing each piece of information and building up a picture of what has happened in the past and what might be done in the future. The Imperial prognosticators have been consulted and they are in agreement. If this project is completed, if the Great Library of Hakinian is built, then study of the documents it contains will provide the Navarre with the information they have been searching for, a way to finally destroy the Valorn that could be achieved now rather than in another 1,000 years. Such study will take at least 2 years, but will require no further investment of resources. If the Great Library of Hakinian project is completed, it will lead directly to a wind of fortune that lays out methods for destroying the Valorn that are not solely reliant on slowly unwinding its power via the Trots. This will be definitive and comprehensive. There'll be no remaining hidden or secret methods waiting to be uncovered. It will represent the culmination of generations of in-character work by the Navarre and their allies, and while it will not by any means be easy or palatable, it will be achievable by player characters in Empire. The Scholars of the League. Disregarding Imperial history does us a disservice, and only furthers the accusations that we care only for ourselves. The League National Assembly encourages citizens of Holberg to accept the invitation to attend the Library of Hakinian to further their knowledge. Whilst there, we also encourage them to make use of their new anointing and the information stored there to help consider new angles to approaching the issue of the Valorn. Alessi di Trevento, Summer 384YE, upheld 316-0, a greater majority. One other nation has so far voiced support for the expansion of the Great Library of Hakinian. The League National Assembly supported Alessi di Trevento when they called for League citizens to visit and help find ways to deal with the Valorn. This raised a few eyebrows among the priests of the League, but after some discussion the wisdom of this exhortation becomes clearer. The League has some of the finest centres of learning in the Empire, along with trained scholars. The recent consecration in Holberg has inspired the academics of that city and of the nation as a whole to turn their keen intellects to finding novel solutions to the problems besetting the Empire. They also have libraries of their own, which, while they are not especially concerned with Navarre or Teruniel or the Valorn, may hold scraps of information that have otherwise been lost. There are 3 obvious ways the citizens of the League could assist the project. The first is by simply helping the Navarre acquire the resources they need to build the library, through donations of money and Bourse materials. Once the Tower Jacks have finished their study at the university, they could march to Hakinia and provide practical help to complete the construction. Finally, the scholars of the League could winnow their stores of knowledge and find everything they can track down about the struggle against the Valorn, ready to share it with the Great Library. The virtuous apply what they have learned. We send named priest with 25 doses of Liao to urge the vigilant and the wise to gather every scrap of information on the Valorn to help establish a centre of learning at the Great Library of Hakinian. Synod Mandate, League National Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, when the Great Library of Hakinian is completed, League scholars would travel to Morning Hollow in Hakinia with stores of documents. Perhaps just as importantly, they would bring with them their own keen minds and their understanding of organising and operating a large centre of learning. The net result will be to reduce the time required to complete the research project by 3 months. The Pilgrims of Highgard. This interest in the Valorn is also relevant to the Highborn, of course. The Grey Pilgrims were originally formed to face the greatest spiritual threat to the Empire, after all. Indeed, the nation has sacrificed much in the name of their commitment, including abandoning plans for a 4th Highborn army. The Highborn have a great respect for the past, the foundation on which the present and the future is built, and there are many libraries and museums scattered across their nation that might contain valuable insights into past events relating not only to the Navarre and their struggle against the Valorn, but also concerning other nations. With their aid and the support of the archivists, the task of collating and organising the Great Library could be made significantly easier. Only fools accept hearsay as truth. We seek a future free from the threat posed by the Valorn. We send named priest with 25 doses of Liao to urge every archivist, curator and grey pilgrim to create copies of any document relating to Teruniel and the struggle against the Valorn. Synod Mandate, Highgard National Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, it will encourage archivist and grey pilgrim alike to throw their support behind the Great Library of Hercynian. Copies of documents held in Highborn libraries and collections will be collected, and joined to the lore collected in the Great Library of Hercynian. This would likewise reduce the time needed to find the answer to the Valorn by 3 months. The greatest spiritual threat. The General Assembly can pass a mandate urging the people of the Empire to contribute to the construction of the Great Library, a concrete step towards defeating the greatest spiritual threat to the Empire. All that is worthwhile is shared with those who deserve it. We send named priest with 50 doses of Liao to urge every citizen who has wains of white granite, mithril or weirwood to sell, to contribute to the Great Library by offering them to the advisor on the Valorn first. Synod Mandate, General Assembly. If this mandate is passed, then each of the ministries that rely on imperial citizens to bring bourse resources for sale at a reasonable price will lose the top 2 ranks of their production. This will affect the Cinderpath Exchange in Highgard, Cowper Hall in Wintermark, the Parador of Dust in the Brass Coast, the Invisible Cord Brokerage in Navarre, and if the mandate receives a greater majority, both the Iron Round Tower and the docks at Karotny in Varushka. Furthermore, there would be no wains of these materials available to the public auction. Instead, the advisor on the Valorn would gain temporary access to a ministry that allowed them to purchase these resources based on which ministries were affected, on the understanding that they purchased these resources to complete the expansion of the Great Library. The reduction to the existing ministries and auctions, and the ability for the advisor on the Valorn to buy these wains, would last until work on the Great Library were completed or the project had lapsed. Historical research. The advisor on the Valorn is a master of historical research. In a rare step, the imperial archivist Leontes the Scribe has spoken up in support of a proposal. The curmudgeonly Marcher scholar volunteers himself and his entire department to help bring together the single finest collection of lore about the Navarre and the Valorn in the Empire. It will be time-consuming. For the next year, the Empire will have only one opportunity for historical research each season. Once the library is built, however, everything the department has been able to gather will be delivered to its halls, reducing the time needed to find the solution to the Valorn by 6 months. Leontes wishes to be clear that he has not proposed this out of any particular affection for the Navarre. Rather, given that the Valorn has been identified more than once as the greatest spiritual threat to the Empire, the way it threatens almost every imperial nation to some degree, and the recent disruption caused by the idiots in the heirs of Teruniel, he does not feel he is overstepping his bounds by doing so. The net result will be to reduce the time required to complete the research project by 6 months. Limited opportunity. This opportunity to commission the Great Library of Hercynian is dependent on the combination of the mandate, the recent statements of principle, and the successes the Navarre secured at Hottersmeyer against the heirs of Teruniel. It will remain available until the end of the winter solstice 384 YE. If it has not been commissioned by that time, this opportunity to build it will be lost, along with the chance to uncover a way to defeat the Valorn. Today is tomorrow. Navarre should officially declare our gratitude towards Bertrand of the House Sepulchre for his virtuous efforts in trying to construct the Greenwood Manor. This will serve as a staging point for Knights of Dawn who are gloriously fighting against the Valorn. Displays virtues of loyalty to Navarre. Leneve Griever, Summer 384YE, upheld, 278-12, a greater majority. Dornish knights have begun exploring the heart of Broceliande, supported by a manor and fair specifically to encourage quests into the Valorn woods. Coupled with recent action by the Assembly and by the vote during the summer solstice to dedicate Seren as a city of dreams, many Navarre Thorns have been inspired to undertake similar adventures. There is some suggestion that by routing the heirs of Teruniel and breaking the power of Yornagra, there may be opportunities to learn new secrets from the hearts of the Valorn that surround the Empire. A Miaran brand named Asoli Briarbark has come forward with an argument that for the first time ever, the Navarre nation knows where all of the Valorn actually is. They know the locations of all the Teruniel ruins, and inspired partly by the Dornish and partly by the proposal of Rhiannos, they have a proposal for something they call the Hall of the Seven, to be built in Miaran. The hall would serve as a dedicated wayhouse for Navarre explorers who would take it upon themselves to explore the Valorn regions not only within the Empire, but beyond its borders. At the heart of the structure would be a great map table, similar to the one used by the Imperial Military Council, that would show not only the 7 Valorn hearts, but also the trods that weave between them. The Hall of the Seven would be comparatively straightforward to build, although there is no shortage of things the Navarre nation might wish to build at the moment. If it were completed, it would create an imperial title, the Spear of the Seven, who would oversee the hall. Their responsibilities would include an expectation that they would swear an oath to always be ready to support imperial heroes who wished to fight the Valorn, from whatever nation, to organise captains to help support any struggle against the Valorn, and to gather resources to empower and assist any effort against the Valorn or its spawn. They would effectively be a counterpart to the Advisor on the Valorn, but with a much more martial focus. The civil service suggests that the well-worn path to appoint such a title would be either unanimous decision of the Navarre senators or appointment via the National Assembly. The Spear of the Seven would gain access to a ministry, allowing them to purchase materials recovered by those exploring the ruins of Teruniel and fighting the Valorn. As long as the Navarre remain committed to the destruction of the Valorn, the action Explore the Ruins of Teruniel would be available to Navarre with military units who take independent action in downtime. Rather than completely random returns, they would receive a mix of coins, forest resources and herbs, and even doses of spring viz. This would represent a Navarre exploration of the relatively accessible ruins of Theranin and Herkinia, the harder-to-reach ruins of Liathaven and Broceliande, and the ruins outside Imperial borders in Otkadov, Sarangrave and Axos. Finally, if the Hall of the Seven were completed, it would provide additional information about the 7 Teruniel ruins that are still occupied by the Valorn. This would take the form of a page on the wiki. The Hall of the Seven Ministry will offer the following purchases. For 9 crowns, 3 measures each of Beggar's Lie, Ambergelt, Dragonbone, and Iridescent Gloaming, and 5 random herbs. For 20 crowns, 6 measures each of Beggar's Lie, Ambergelt, Dragonbone, and Iridescent Gloaming, and 10 random herbs. For 40 crowns, 9 measures each of Beggar's Lie, Ambergelt, Dragonbone, and Iridescent Gloaming, 10 random herbs, and 2 vials of vital honey. Tomorrow is tomorrow. During the summer solstice, the Navarre at Anvil held a vote to determine the future of the city of Seren. By a narrow margin, they voted that it should be transformed into the City of Dreams. This decision has been spread across the nation by the egregores and has met with a great deal of enthusiasm. Support for the City of Dreams blossoms, and people are eager to see the great work begin. The next step is for the Imperial Senate to commission the creation of the Temple of the Waking Dream. The temple requires 90 wains of weirwood, 30 wains of white granite, and 30 thrones in labour. It will take 3 seasons to complete. We will all be there tomorrow. During the spring equinox, the Navarre Assembly upheld a statement of principle by Quinn Eternal, encouraging the sharing of knowledge, tools and resources with the people of Highgard, recognising the role of those like the Grey Pilgrims who are dedicated to the destruction of the spiritual threat posed by the Valorn. Shiloh of the Dauntless Light raised a similar judgment in the Highborn Assembly, but while it was supported, it did not reach a greater majority. However, Highgard commitment to the destruction of the Valorn has been clear. Mandates, such as that of Hazel Pony, encouraging Highborn congregations to continue their efforts to oppose the Valorn, and the presence of the Grey Pilgrims walking the trods alongside the Navarre are testament to this. It seems clear that the attention of the armies of Highgard is on Zenith and the fight against the Druge. Many see the Orcs of the Malum as just as much a threat to the souls of Imperial citizens as the Valorn. Yet there is an argument that it is not down to the armies to fight the Valorn. Not yet, anyway. The best way to oppose spiritual threats is through spiritual means, such as through the peregrinations of the Grey Pilgrims. As a result of Shiloh's statement, a quiet groundswell of support has arisen among the Grey Pilgrims most motivated by the desire to destroy the Valorn, keen to see closer cooperation between the two nations. The Valorn represents the greatest spiritual threat to the people of the Empire. We send named priest with 50 doses of Lao to urge the priests of Highgard to listen to our allies in Navarre and to share any insight into the challenges that face us all. Synod Mandate, Highgard National Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then for the year following, until the end of the autumn equinox 385 YE, the Grey Pilgrims will ensure that any statement of principle raised in the Highgard National Assembly will be shared with the Navarre Assembly and vice versa. No statement of principle in a National Assembly is guaranteed to have an effect, but this potential will exist for statements in either assembly to create mandates in the other, much as it did between Dawn and Highgard over the last year. Statements that do not relate to the struggle against the Valorn are less likely to result in any kind of response in the other assembly, but statements in either assembly that do deal with the struggle against the Valorn will at least be discussed by the priests of the other nation. We, the guides of the Navarre National Assembly, encourage increased sharing of knowledge, tools and resources with our highborn siblings to further improve Highgard's effectiveness in fighting the Valorn. Only together can we look to vanquish the Valorn. Highborn elected in loyalty and vigilance to change a part of their national identity over the course of 382 YE. Since then, the Grey Pilgrims have taken up the mantle of walking the trods to aid in the weakening of the Valorn, helping combat the greatest spiritual threat to the Empire. But as a nation, Navarre can offer so much more to both the Grey Pilgrims and the people of Highgard. We encourage all Navarre to seek out and offer their collective wisdom, knowledge and experience to all Highborn with how to most effectively equip and train themselves to fight the Valorn. This statement is considered to be complementary to the statement raised in the Highgard National Assembly by Shiloh of the Dauntless Light. Quinn Eternal, Spring 384 YE, upheld 244 votes to 0, a greater majority. Siblings of Highgard, we need to listen to and communicate with our colleagues in Navarre and be prepared to fight the Valorn in the most effective manner possible. When we joined the virtuous fight with the Navarre against the Valorn, we uprooted our citizens in a dramatic change to our nation. Now the Grey Pilgrims are settled into their new way of life. We need to be vigilant and prepare for the fight going forwards. Navarre are experts in combating the Valorn, and we as Highborn need to recognise their knowledge and experience and learn from them. We encourage all Highborn to seek out a member of the Navarre and take the time to learn from them the tools and tactics for fighting the Valorn effectively. This statement is considered to be complementary to the statement raised in the Navarre National Assembly by Quinn Eternal. Shiloh of the Dauntless Light, Spring 384 YE, upheld 326 to 0, upheld.